You know, there are a lot of vehicles in War Tycoon, and some of them have their very niche uses, and then the others are just very good and better than the others in general, and that's fine. That is a part of the video game. However, in this video, I'll be covering the top 5 vehicles in War Tycoon that do need a pretty substantial nerf, because they do actually kind of ruin the meta and make the game a lot more unfun. And this video is going to be based on my opinion, but also our top players and the overall community feedback. Anyway, let's just jump right into it. So the first vehicle on this list, which I'm going to be covering, is actually going to be a surprise to a lot of people, but it's going to be the A129 Mangusta. And you might be wondering why the Mangusta is so OP and why would it ever need a nerf? Well, if you do actually take a look at the helicopter combat, it does have 3 very important strengths standing for it. It's the most agile helicopter out of all of them, and everything is, it's the fastest helicopter, its missiles are AI, meaning that you don't really have to lock onto the enemy, the missiles will just follow the enemy. And the last thing is that it does have the best cannon in the game in terms of travel speed, which is pretty much just makes this helicopter perfect for heli versus heli combat. But not only that, and the main problem that this helicopter actually has and it causes for the game is going to be the helicopter versus helicopter combat. The reason why I say this is because it does have 8 of its AI missiles, which, by the way, all of them do some substantial amounts of damage, and they're absolutely no joke. However, the problem with them is that you do not have to lock on with them. You just simply fire them and you forget about them, just like the name says. And you might be wondering, if the Just 39 Gripen can do exactly the same thing, why does it not need a nerf? Because the Just 39 Gripen, you're taking a risk for a high reward by diving down to attack your targets on the ground, or by aggroing different planes or different vehicles in the sky. You are taking a risk. However, with the Mangusta, a lot of the time you can just space away from the enemy, just fire your missiles, and pretty much just leave. Same with the tanks. There's not going to be a problem with you getting shot out of the sky, because you can just stay at around 1500 stats the whole fight, and the tank literally just cannot do anything to you, because the AI missiles are going to do all of the job for you. Like, there's no lock-on range. So to put this into the final conclusion, the Mangusta is a very good helicopter. However, let's just say it's a little bit too good than what it actually needs to be. So in my opinion, what needs to be slightly nerfed about it is going to be its missile strength, and that's pretty much all that it takes to make this helicopter a pretty perfect vehicle. Or just change 4 of its missiles to actual missiles which you have to lock on, so the vehicle is much more balanced. Anyway, let's just jump into the next one. Now, moving into the number 4 spot, and this is the one I mentioned in a lot of videos, but I'm going to be mentioning it once again for the one last and final time: the Patriot anti-air truck. This vehicle is as simple as it is. All you have to do is just lock onto the target. The target is dead. Not really much that can be done about it, because the 16 missiles is more than enough to pretty much kill a lot of targets. Now, the main problem that the Patriot actually has for the meta is going to be the fact that you can just simply hide away and wait for your opponent to be in the perfect place and just fire all the missiles at them, and they won't even know where they're coming from, and they're just pretty much dead. Yes, the point of this vehicle is to be an anti-air vehicle, but let's all be honest, that isn't the most fun way to go ahead and actually play the game, because what the Patriot provides can just be provided by much more multi-role vehicles in general, which are also a lot more fun to play against. Like, I don't know a single person who enjoys anti-air spam, so I genuinely don't think that the anti-air vehicles are really fun to play around, and it's not something that the game really needs, because seriously, most of the players in the modern meta are simply going to be able to fight you head-on without actually having to play cheesy against you. But yeah, this is one of the vehicles which I think should have never landed in the game in general, and this is all I have to say about it. Now, as sad as it is to say it, the USS Independence that has recently been released into the game, let's just say it's a little bit too strong. So the main problem with the USS Independence isn't really the fact that in general it is better than the Zumwalt. That isn't what people are that much worried about. It's about the fact that this vehicle is actually incredibly oppressive in terms of all of its statistics and what it can do. Like the missile spam. 2 missiles is more than enough to kill an average helicopter and plane, and you have literally 4 of them. Sure, we can talk about the fact that you're going to be baiting them out with 1, but that's still going to be at least 2 kills for free at the cost of nothing, and you're not really forced to do anything at all. So I genuinely think that some of the statistics on this vehicle are just a little bit too strong, and I think if they do get nerfed by at least like 10 to 15%, I think this vehicle can just pretty much become perfect, because at the end of the day, it's not supposed to be the best vehicle in the game, which currently I genuinely gotta say it probably is. Now you might be wondering, considering how OP the Independence actually is, why is it only at 3rd place? Well, we have 2 more planes to discuss, and they are really interesting in terms of their balancing. So anyway, let's just jump into the first one, and here we have ourselves the A10 Warthog. Okay, so the A10 Warthog, a lot of people have been asking for the A10 to get buffed. The developers have listened to us, and the A10 has received its buff. So why is there so many problems for it, you might wonder? Well, the main issue with the A10 isn't the fact that it was buffed, it's the fact it was over buffed. So what the A10 currently has is exactly 4 smart bombs. I would like to call these bombs a very different name, an instant win button against any vehicle on the ground, because that's pretty much what it is. The A10, if you max it out, it's gonna be able to survive a tank cannon, and fun fact, these bombs can also go through smoke, which the tanks can deploy. Like, you could deploy the smoke at the perfect timing, well, the bombs are still gonna go through it and still track you. That's also one of the problems. There's pretty much no countermeasure to these bombs, but another thing is that the A10 also makes the F117 Nighthawk a useless vehicle. The main thing about it was never supposed to be the strength of its bombs, the strength of its missiles. It was supposed to be the main Gatling gun, which is what it's very famous for, and also its survivability. Well, things are kind of the other way around with this vehicle. And another thing I would like to add into the A10 is that the A10 is mainly a very low risk and very high reward vehicle. Again, much like the Mangusta, you are paying nothing to gain everything. That's pretty much the problem I'm seeing with it. Yes, it's not that good in terms of air-to-air, but I do believe that the bombs do deserve to have at least some kind of nerf in terms of their damage, so they cannot just freaking no difficulty win against every vehicle on the ground. Anyway, I do believe that people should also be able to use their cannon a lot more, and I think the cannon for this reason should be buffed and made even stronger than what it already is, because that is actually called a risk, but it can be incredibly rewarding. However, another thing I'd like to add is the fact that pretty much every single plane used to be able to do this with tanks, and that's why the APS was added. However, the bombs can hit for APS, and yes, that is actually pretty realistic, and I do like that fact, but I believe they're just a tiny bit too strong, and they do deserve to have at least some kind of damage nerf. However, the main thing of this vehicle was supposed to be its Gatling gun, so I really hope that actually receives a buff. Now, moving into the number 1 spot, and you might wonder what plane it is. Well, did you think it was the F-35? Well, guess what? You got it wrong. I will be covering the V22 Osprey, and a lot of people, like a lot, have been complaining about this vehicle over and over and over again. I'll even put the suggestion on the screen right now. Now, just for a random new player, or really most people in War Tycoon, you might think that this vehicle isn't very OP. It just has a cannon, and that's pretty much it. It's a transport vehicle. Well, if you have been playing for the game for a little bit longer than that, you would understand where I'm coming from, so let me cover all the problems with the V22 right now. So first of all, let's cover its air-to-air capabilities. The fact that this vehicle is a transport vehicle, however, its agility and barrel rolls are still way too good, because you are simply able to outturn most planes. For some reason, the V22 Osprey, which is a transport vehicle, has some of the best turning in the whole entire game. And everything is, even if you're getting outturned, you can just switch to another side, and then you can just mow down the opponent with the main cannon, which is something that a lot of people have been doing a lot of the time. So in terms of air-to-air capabilities, this vehicle is pretty much a god, and it can do the job very easily. It does take skill, however, the thing that we have to talk about is that this vehicle barely has any downsides when you actually go ahead and use it, because it also has insanely high health, and when you max it out, it's almost going to be hitting 2000 health. But to me, a vehicle which can just mow down planes in pretty much all the 1v1s that has almost 2000 health is a bit too much. Anyway, another problem that this vehicle actually does have is the fact that it does have a very unique flare mechanic, because I don't know if a lot of people have noticed, but the flares in general do tend to actually not protect you most of the time when you actually going to be fighting your opponents. Well, guess what? The V22 Osprey does just that by the opposite, because these flares are much better than any other flares for other vehicles. As you guys can see, it deploys more flares, but also the flares are much more reactive to the missiles which are going to be going near them, which is also another problem with this vehicle, vehicle, and it is a very unique mechanic that it does have. However, the one last thing that this vehicle is very overpowered for is going to be its tank combat capabilities. What you are basically able to do with the V22 Osprey without any type of problem is just mow down tanks which are on the ground. You could just sit like, let's say, 2000 stats above this above the ground, and all you have to do is just mow down the tanks with this cannon, which, fun fact, is actually very strong in terms of its damage, and it can mow down tanks in such a fast amount of time. But not to add, the bullets also have a very high travel speed. Well, you might say that you would be able to shoot this vehicle down with a main cannon. Well, if you're incredibly cracked in the game, you probably won't be able to do that still, because the V22 Osprey is also very good at being able to dodge. The reason why is because it has a very unique hitbox and movement pattern which it can use with its veto, and it can pretty much just go in 10 directions. It can go left, right, forward, backward. It can also go up, go down. You are pretty much able to react to the opponent because of how far you are away from them. Now, I know a lot of people who do actually use helicopters. Yes, you can counter this vehicle with helicopters very easily. However, the problem with just being able to counter this vehicle with only one type kind of takes away from the fun of other vehicles, because let's say you're using a tank and then you see someone spamming the Osprey and you're like, oh man, do I have to use the helicopters again? Is this my only counter to it? Well, the game, this is pretty much how it feels for a lot of the players. Anyway, that is everything I have for you guys in today's video. Do let me know in the comment section down below what you think about this list. Personally, I do think it's actually very good, and I did take quite a while to discuss this topic with a lot of people that do play the game for a very long time, just like me. Anyway, I'll see you guys next video. Have a great day, and do let me know in the comment section down below which other vehicles that I didn't mention in this list are just a little bit too oppressive.